Okay. So anyway, we'll try to do it along those lines. So we'll start. We will start off in the order. Since Professor Craig went first, we'll have the first question to him, and the second question will be to Professor Pigliucci. Also, folks, when I begin to see that people are falling out in the aisles from being tired, I will probably try to end the questions unless things get extremely exciting and everybody wakes up.
Much of your argument dealt with the resurrection story in the Bible. I've read it. I'm sure a lot of us have. But what the early writers there saw, apparently what they saw, and they wrote in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they wrote a different story of what they saw. And these are not just sequential problems, but they're problems like with the number of angels, who was there at the resurrection, where did they see Jesus the first time, what the angel said. I don't think I'd forget what an angel said. And they're not just for the chain of events. If the resurrection really happened, why is there such a different story in each of the Gospels?
It's important to understand that we're not debating tonight about biblical inerrancy. And so I'm not at all bothered by the fact that there would be inconsistencies or contradictions in the accounts, or even that some of the accounts might be false. The task of the critical historian or the New Testament scholar is to sort through the accounts to try to use objective criteria of historiography to find the historical core of the narrative. And the three facts that I mentioned tonight represent the historical core of those narratives. Notice that my facts didn't include things like the number of angels at the tomb, or the names of the women, or the order of the appearances and things of that sort. Those are secondary details that scholars can disagree with and talk about. But what I'm pointing out is that when you use the ordinary canons of historiography, you can establish that there is a historical core to these narratives, which is historically well established, and which suffices to provide an inductive basis for inferring the resurrection of Jesus. So I look at debates over biblical inerrancy and so forth as being an in-house debate among Christians. It's not necessary or relevant to my argument tonight for the historicity of the resurrection.
It seems to me that Dr. Craig wants to stay away from biblical inerrancy because he does know that there's a big problem there. But at the same time, he wants his arguments to be based on truth of the historical record. And now what is the historical record? It is the Bible. So it seems to me that he wants his cake and wants to eat it too. By the same token, he says, well, we should focus on just the core that is common to all the stories in the Gospels. Yeah, but by the same kind of reasoning, then we should all believe in UFOs, because there is a consistent core of things that people that believe in UFOs actually do share in their stories. But I hope that most people in this room actually know better than believe that kind of thing. So just because there is a core set of congruencies in certain stories, that doesn't make them true at all. It only means that either people copy from each other's story, or they copied from some other source. In both the case of Christianity and the UFOs, we know that that's the situation. In the case of Christianity, the Gospels were copied from each other to some extent, and in the case of UFO stories, it goes the same way.
Okay, question over here.
Okay. Since women that believe in God are less likely to have abortions, does that mean that natural selection will result in a greater number of believers than non-believers?
I would like to question that empirical claim. I'd like to know where you got that, because it seems hard to believe. Do you have a source for that?
No, I don't. It's an assumption, and you are a very logical debater, and I am not practiced in logic.
That's okay. Seems like you answered your own question.
Well, that is a very intriguing question. It would seem probably that folks who believe in God, I mean, just in this country at least, Muslims and evangelical Christians, Roman Catholics, Greek Orthodox, I think he's right. They have moral objections to abortions that many non-Christians don't.
Right, but there's plenty of evidence.
So he's pointing out that they would tend to propagate more children than the unbelievers would, and that therefore the unbelievers are sort of shooting themselves in the foot,
remember that the believers also have other things that increase their fitness quite a bit. For example, go out there and propagate anytime you have the occasion for it. So that's a pretty adaptive trait out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Okay. Mr. Craig, one of the statements you use to support your claim that we know that an objective morality exists is that there is, and use these words, there is something deep within us.
Yeah.
There's this, I'm going to go ahead and call it an element, I'm going to dub that element X. Can you show, sir, that it is impossible for that element to have been an adaptive trait of evolutionary origin?
I don't need to show that in order for this argument to work. It's very important to understand, and this didn't come out in the debate tonight, that the evolutionists' assumption that because moral values evolve, that therefore they are non-objective, is a classic case of what philosophers call the genetic fallacy. That is to say, trying to invalidate an idea by showing how the idea originated. Our gradual and fallible apprehension of moral values no more undermines the objectivity of those values than our gradual and fallible apprehension of the physical world undermines the objectivity of the physical world. So that even if it's true that the way we come to apprehend moral values is through, say, social conditioning and evolution and things like that, that does nothing to undermine the objectivity of those values. So I wouldn't need to show that, much less need to show that it's impossible. So I think that the sociobiologist just commits a classic case of the genetic fallacy here. My argument, rather, is simply to appeal to your moral intuition. What I'm saying is that there's no more reason to deny the objective realm of moral values than there is to deny the objective reality of the world of physical objects. Any argument that you could give to be skeptical about your moral intuitions, I could give a parallel argument why you should be skeptical about your sensory intuitions. And it would lead to skepticism about, say, the external world or the reality of the past. So if it's rational to trust our sensory intuitions that there is a world of physical objects, I think in the same way it's rational to trust our moral intuitions that there is an objective realm of moral values. And I do think that most of us grasp that. I just invite you to explore your moral experience and see if you don't find that true as well.
Time.
I would like to ask Dr. Craig, how does he know that there are moral universal truths out there? Where is he reading those things? They're not written in the sky. Of course, he would say that they're written in the Bible, but we've seen that the Bible says all sorts of interesting things, not many of which are necessarily moral. It makes a big deal out of the intuition thing, and intuition is important. It's a fundamental component of the way in which human beings think. But intuition is also very fallible. Let me give you an example. Most gamblers have the intuition that they could beat the system. They go out there and, I'm going to bring the house down and I'm going to go home rich. And as you know, very few of them actually succeed. And the main reason is that they don't succeed is because their intuition was wrong. And the reason their intuition was wrong and led to the ruin is because they didn't do their homework. They didn't understand the laws of probability, which is something that in this debate has cropped up a couple of times, and they did not understand the basic laws of the physical world. I suggest that it's a good idea to try to understand the laws of the physical world before making these kind of big decisions.
Okay. Question over here.
Dr. Pigliucci, what is your opinion on the claim of the empty tomb? If Jesus never rose, then the disciples would have known that they were spreading a lie. Either they knew that the body had been stolen, or they were just making up a story. I agree that there is nothing extraordinary about dying for a belief, but there is something to be said about dying for what is known to be a blatant lie. You talk of probability versus possibility. What are the chances that 11 men would be willing to give their life and death to a lie? If it was merely a story.
I think I got the gist of it. Well, actually, there are plenty of people that die for blatant lies. For example, a bunch of criminals would lie to the system and risk their life in order to gain something. So it's not that easy. It's not that clear-cut. It seems to me, however, that the fundamental point about the resurrection is that there are other explanations. One of them, as you suggested, was that somebody was lying. And not necessarily everybody, by the way. It could have been just one person pulling the trick. Just one person could have taken the body and taken it away, and then everybody else would have believed. I mean, how many times we have these kind of examples with miracles today? There are miracles allegedly going on all over the planet, and there are all sorts of people that believe them. And in a lot of cases, they turn out to be frauds, but not frauds perpetrated by hundreds of people or thousands of people. Usually it's just one person for whatever reason, sometimes just for the heck of it, that pulls this kind of stuff, and people fall for it. I mean, you wouldn't believe the number of things that people believe that are not rational and not based on evidence. There are also other explanations. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons why people would like to start a new religion. Was it Ron Hubbard who started Scientology, said that one of the best ways to make money in the United States today is to start a new religion. And you should know, he started one and he succeeded pretty well, the Scientology. There are all sorts of also psychological reasons, not necessarily personal gain or finance. There is all sorts of reasons why people can lie or can be deceived. But interestingly, there are also all sorts of interesting evidence from neurobiology that people are very good at self-deception. If you really want to believe something, I can give you all the evidence to the contrary, and you still believe whatever you want to believe. This is a very common phenomenon that fortunately or unfortunately is part of the human brain, and there doesn't seem to be much of a way around it. The point is, these are simple explanations that invoking a huge leap of faith and say, well, I don't believe any of this is these naturalistic explanations. There was a supernatural being there. It's a big one.
The reason that I present the evidence for the resurrection fourth in my list of arguments is because once you've already established the existence of a creator and designer of the universe who is the locus of absolute value, then the idea that he has intervened decisively in history becomes much more plausible, and the appeal to a miraculous explanation is much more plausible because you know that such a being exists. Now, no New Testament historian today tries to explain these empty tomb or appearance stories or the origin of the Christian faith as a result of lies or conspiracy. All of these conspiracy theories cannot take seriously what a catastrophe the crucifixion was for these men. It wasn't just that Jesus was dead. The crucifixion, according to Old Testament law, showed that Jesus was literally accursed by God and therefore couldn't have been who he claimed to be. Moreover, they had no idea of a resurrection within history prior to the end of the world, so that they couldn't be deceiving themselves or lying about this. It was completely contrary to any Jewish expectations they might have had.
Time. Next question.
Dr. Craig, you said that belief in God could be a properly basic belief. Mm-hmm. Could you please explain what you mean by properly basic and explain why some beliefs might be considered properly basic, whereas other beliefs might only illegitimately be considered properly basic? Yes. And then could you also explain what then is the relationship between positive arguments and the evidence you're giving to belief in God if it's already a properly basic belief anyway?
You must be a philosophy student, right? Okay, I thought so. He recognizes these sort of code words like proper basicality. You see, not everything that we believe rationally can be based on argument or evidence, because there are certain beliefs that epistemologists call properly basic beliefs, which are simply foundational to knowledge. Things like belief in the reality of the external world, belief in the reality of the past, belief in other minds. There's no way to prove these things. There's no way to prove you're not a brain in a vat being stimulated by a mad scientist to think you're here in this lecture hall tonight. Rather, these are properly basic beliefs, but they're not arbitrary because they are appropriately grounded in our experience. And in the absence of a defeater of those experiences, we are entirely rational in believing in these properly basic beliefs as grounded in that experience. Now, my argument is that belief in God can similarly be properly basic, grounded in the immediate experience of knowing God in the way that the Bible describes, having a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. The relation of properly basic beliefs to argument would be that even though I myself hold this belief in a properly basic way, nevertheless, in trying to show to some other person that this belief is true, I can't just appeal to my experience.